on and let's get this going. So excited that we're going to have a panel full of diverse women who have entered the space from completely different backgrounds and are ready to create, to make change. I think we're just waiting on Rushi to come on. Amazing. Thank you, Dr. Rushi. How are you doing?
Hi, Sonia. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So how I'm going to let us begin is I'm going to invite everybody to introduce themselves because I'm not going to do justice, right? That's just the reality of it. So we're going to start with our panelists that we haven't heard from, and then we shall go to Lubna and Emily. So Davina, would you like to kick off? Thank you so much for joining us. Please do an introduction and give us that tech bio that we're all waiting for.
Hi, everybody. It's brilliant to be here. So I'm an accountant by trade, but I did a physics degree. So I've always had a broad interest in technology and science. I co-founded an angel investment syndicate in 2014 called Galvanize Capital. And our focus is media and advertising technology. And really now what underpins all of that is big data and AI. And a really good example of that is one of our portfolio companies, a business called Phrasey, and they use NPL and AI to deliver ROI to clients by creating personalized customer journeys and automating brand standards. As well as that, something that takes up a lot of my time is as CFO, Chief Financial Officer of Zumo. Zumo is a non-custodial crypto app. And I guess through working with Zumo, I wouldn't say necessarily I would class myself as an expert, but definitely an enthusiast in blockchain and crypto. And there's a lot of buzz at the moment on this convergence of the Internet of Things with blockchain technology and AI, and that's all really exciting. But it's brilliant to be here.
Thank you so much. Very exciting. Can't wait for the discussion to start. Dr. Ritchie, please do introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your journey in deep tech and data.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I'm Dr. Ruchi Dana. I'm a medical doctor, and I did my MBA from Stanford. And while my days at Stanford, I took the Stanford Biodesign course. There's a lot of low-cost medical devices that come out of the Stanford Biodesign course. I've personally worked a lot on robotic surgery, especially low-cost robotic surgery. So when you talk about deep tech, like every startup that was funded in the early 90s was all deep tech. And now we can see like most of those applications of deep tech are getting commoditized. So if you talk about the new generation of deep tech, it's all about like applications that are really new proprietary technologies that can be used and that can be used to actually scale new vertical dimensions again. So at the moment, I'm mainly looking at healthcare, but at the same time, I'm also a venture partner at MFV Ventures, and MFV Ventures is a deep tech fund through which we have made some investments into quantum computing as well. So there's a company called Psi Quantum that's valued over $3.2 billion. And similarly, we have done a lot investments into deep tech funds, but at the moment, I'm also looking at the use of computational biology, especially in the use of like AI for drug discovery, how to repurpose existing drugs, synthetic biology. So those are the key themes that I'm looking at. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so grateful that you have been able to join us. Sounds like you've got a very busy schedule. So we're going to unpack that just in a second. Lubna, would you like to do an introduction, especially for those who weren't on your kind of delightful lightning talk?
Sure. Thank you, Sonia. So I'm Lubna, founder CEO of Okra AI, a company that is building the brain for life science companies. We harness the power of deep tech to improve patients' outcomes and bring drugs faster to patients. So Okra allows healthcare professionals to combine all their data in one place, in one brain, and generate actionable evidence-based insights in real time to save and improve human lives. Our deep expertise in AI combined with an in-depth medical and product knowledge from life sciences leaders has allowed us to develop learning systems that can transform the way we approach traditional challenges and create a new digital brain for pharmaceutical companies. And today, Okra has a vibrant and diverse team based in Cambridge, UK, and Leiden, the Netherlands. We are outside of my day-to-day job as CEO of Okra. I'm an advisor to the European Commission and member states on the ethical implementation of AI and the regulatory framework. I'm a strong advocate for inclusivity and diversity in STEM and women in business. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Lubna, we're going to get all into that, especially the STEM and women in business, towards the end of today's agenda, because you know we can't talk about technology without recognizing the lack of diversity that exists and how we even enter the deep tech space. So thank you. And Emily, last but not least, please do a reintroduction for those who weren't on your lightning talk and tell us who you are, why you're here, and how did you enter the deep tech space?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much, Sonia. So I'm a deep tech investor at Speed Invest. I've been with Speed Invest for about a year. And before that, I did a degree in physics. I ventured a little bit into the business development world and the startup world, and then kind of went back to academia, where I was working on sort of material science application and microelectronics. And it was actually within the academic environment that I discovered deep tech, because I very quickly realized that I was much more concerned about getting the technology out of the academic environment and into the real world, rather than staying in the academic environment. So it was really that passion for all the amazing emerging technologies that can sometimes get stuck behind the walls of academia and trying to get them beyond that drove me to deep tech and Speed Invest in particular. So Speed Invest is a sort of generalist fund, but we have sector-specific teams, and we provide a lot of operational support to our portfolios. And I think in particular in deep tech, this is really helpful to founders that maybe come from a more academic environment. But that's how I ended up here, and also really passionate, of course, about diversity in STEM and in technology in general. And I'm very honored to be part of this panel with these amazing women and you, Sonia.
Thank you. I mean, when I was setting up the panel, I wanted to have women who are leading in the space. Yes, we had Daniel, who was a great lightning talk. And as a man in science and a man in STEM and a man in technology, he gave us so much rich content. But I thought for a panel, we just want to make sure that we are representative and that we are answering the question, is deep tech the future of technology? So Davina, this question, the first question goes to you, and then Lubna, I invite you to get involved after Davina. So according to recent data, the global AI market is predicted to snowball in the next few years, reaching a whopping $190.61 billion. I don't even understand that figure. I think it's a bunch of numbers on the screen by 2025. So my question is, what do you believe are some of the benefits businesses can see by implementing AI, and what are the ethical considerations they should be thinking about?
Okay, so I think the classic view of AI in business is often, what it allows us to do is move people from the mundane or the grunt work into work that is a lot more engaging, a lot more satisfying, and also of higher value. And we can see that so much, Lubna talked about that a lot in her presentation already, through many industries, cybersecurity, medical diagnostics, or customer support. And, especially in those early interactions or early stages, where there can be tasks that are very repetitive, they can be tasks that are often prone to manual error. These can be automated. And I think that, that's really important, because then you've got this technology there that's on 24/7, and we are seeing tremendous efficiencies in industry and in public service. So there are massive benefits to automation and AI. I think there are a couple of things that I think that we need to think about, and think about how we are going to address. So firstly, what I would say is, look, flawed and biased data equals or potentially gives flawed and biased AI. And I think what we need to do, the rollout of artificial intelligence is only going to become more and more prolific. So we need to make sure that the people supervising that have the tools and are equipped to be aware and have an understanding that these can be built with errors, they can be built with bias, and they need to know how they're going to fix that. Because really, if you have AI that's built with bias or is flawed, the people that are going to really be impacted by that are people who are already marginalized and disenfranchised from society. So I think that's one really important thing that we need to think about. I think the other thing is, we have also spoken about the mundane tasks. I think we also need to acknowledge that AI is just getting so good. It's actually going up the chain, right? So we need to start thinking about what is the future of work. And we're not going to be able to compete with machines or algorithms. So we need to look at what are our USPs. And those come in the forms of things like creativity. They come through compassion, our innovation, our imagination, our empathy. And those are the things that we need to probably think about when we're looking at what is the future of work, not just probably for us, but also for the future generations.
Thank you for your answer. We've had a question come through, and Lubna, I'm going to invite you onto the screen to answer the same question, but also to answer this question. A question's come through saying, are we going to lose our jobs to AI? Right? That is the question. Am I going to lose my job? If it's manual, if it's laborers, what am I going to be doing? And maybe I'll redirect that to you if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sonia. I think this is part of any revolution, any technological revolution. Some jobs becomes irrelevant, and then new jobs are created. We are, as it's been mentioned, there is a big growth in this market, and I can give you the figures in the life science market. We are growing from 9 billion expenditure on AI to 23 billion by 2025. So the costs on classic software, on SaaS systems is stagnant at the moment. So the most growth is going to be in this space. What does that mean for the workforce? It means that a lot of repetitive tasks that could be handled better by algorithms, a lot of jobs where there's a lot of dashboards and analysis will be kind of replaced. We will not spend all our time behind the computer trying to analyze, but we will spend our times doing what we're good as human beings, communicating, solving problems. And also that's one point. The other point is that we are the speed of reskilling our workforce that will grow. So we had to reskill maybe our workforce once in a generation time. Now we have to do maybe 4 times in a generation times, because a lot of technology will come and a lot of things will be automated. Even cognitive tasks that we've been doing and requires even my job as a data scientist, originally big part of it will be automated. So and it's not about losing, it's really what is the human quality that is very important right now is flexibility, agility, openness to learn. If you want to stay unflexible and really hold on what you do right now, it might be a difficulty to progress. So it's really about how we can embrace, adopt faster, improve, and grow with the technology together.
What a great answer. Thank you. Especially if we're touching on the future of work, flexibility, empathy. You know, sounds like as women in STEM, yes, you acknowledge the advances that tech can do and the advances that can come with machine learning, AI, quantum, all the good deep tech stuff, but really taking it back and saying, what are our basic human values, right? Where does compassion come into it? Where does empathy come into it? Where does communication skills come into it? Unfortunately, these skills are what we call soft skills, but I think they're professional skills. They're kind of, you know, business acumen skills, and they're what we should be teaching, what we should be learning, especially at university. And this brings me on nicely to Dr. Ritchie. So you know, Lubna mentioned in her talk, in her lightning talk, that really the healthcare system has changed in speed. We have done 10 years worth of work in 10 months. Most of us don't necessarily even know what's happening, but we know that we need deep tech to really advance the future of healthcare. So how do you think that the healthcare space has changed pre and post COVID? And in terms of advancements in AI and robotics, where are we currently and where do we hope to be? Dr. Ritchie, let me invite you into this question.
Sure. Thank you, Sonia. So as we saw, there was a lot of adoption for telemedicine. So telemedicine really gained a lot of traction in the very beginning. But if you see now, there are some challenges associated with telemedicine. One of them is that the vital signs monitoring is not possible. So if we use deep tech technologies like edge computing, I think that's one way to actually have like remote patient monitoring possible for the doctors. And instead of just collecting data, it's more about the interpretation of data and how you can use that data. So I think, again, like edge computing would be a good resource there. One of the other challenges that we saw in telemedicine was that the hospitals don't actually like telemedicine. And the reason for that is that all the stakeholders are not aligned. So now that's a business question, because like once you go and visit a hospital chain, you have a pharmacy there, you have like a cafeteria there, you'll go drink coffee, buy the medicines from the same hospital. So these are things that the hospitals are losing out on. But I think a solution for this is not with deep tech, but like just aligning all the stakeholders together and coming up with a solution that's easy for not just the consumers, but even the healthcare systems that are out there. So that's one other challenge that I saw, that there was a lot of adoption, but it's becoming a little challenging right now because hospitals don't want to promote telemedicine anymore. I think there was a lot of adoption for teleradiology, telepathology, in fact, even tele-ICU. Like there were startups that came that could actually help surgeons understand like what's going on even remotely, because there could be a surgeon sitting at home and another doing at the ICU, but there was like ability to guide the surgeons. And there were a number of startups that popped up in this. Some of them got good amounts of funding as well. So that's again one thing that moved a lot. Other technologies that I saw were high throughput MRI scans, and similarly high throughput scans for like CTs, X-rays as well. And especially if you talk about the CT score, that's one of the major scores that people use for detecting COVID. I think that's one thing in which like a number of startups came, and there's a lot of deep tech involved in terms of like if you want to do high throughput screening, there's like some settings to be changed in the hardware as well, and there's some software modifications to be done. So there were like some deep tech startups that have licensed out these technologies. So these were the main things that we saw in terms of like the applications of deep tech in the healthcare sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's sending through your questions. Remember, on Twitter, we're at Pirate Summit, #PirateLive, #DeepTech. Ask your questions. And if you are on the summit, send them through. We are looking at them. We are going to read them out. We are going to ask them. And we've had a question come through on the back of Dr. Rishi, what you've mentioned. So what are the future healthcare kind of, what is the trajectory of the healthcare? And as an investment firm, as someone who invests in the healthcare of tomorrow, what are you really looking into, right? What are the startups of tomorrow? What are you excited about? And that question goes out to everyone, including Emily. Your names have particularly been mentioned in the question. That's why I'm kind of sharing it that way. So Richie, if you'd like to answer, and then Emily, if you'd like to jump on, what are we excited about when it comes to AI tech, deep tech in the healthcare space?
Sure. So I'm really excited about robotics. That's one area that I've personally worked on. I have a couple of patents on robotic surgery as well. But if we talk about like the first generation of robots, they were like they had to be programmed, and they were like almost like an elephant sitting in the operation theater. So now you have the new generation of robots that have computer vision, that can be like much more agile. They're intelligent robots who can actually give feedback to the doctors. So I think that's one thing that's really exciting. One of the things that didn't lead to a lot of adoption during the COVID times were that most of these robotic surgery devices are used for elective surgeries, and a lot of elective surgeries were closed down during the COVID times. But I think like there'll be a huge adoption for low-cost robotic surgery in the near future. So I'm excited about that space.
And Emily, what about yourself? What are you excited about?
I mean, that's a pretty broad question, but maybe to bring it back, like you said, a little bit to AI, and especially AI in healthcare or in specific applications, I'd like to bring it back to what Lubna was saying, which is really the importance of building up trust in the AI. And I think there's a lot of technology that's being built on the back of that. So creating models and artificial intelligence systems that really are explainable, right? So this is where you get the term explainable AI, and robust. So not only are they trustworthy against sort of attacks that can come in and disrupt what's actually being put into them, but also there's some transparency in terms of what is actually being computed. So I think there's a lot of opportunities and work that's being done in particular around that, because like we said, the regulations are always trying to catch up with the technology. So this is where you have the importance of thinking about these ethics and providing this transparency and this robustness. So lots around there. And yeah, I think for the AI, I'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the words that we are sharing, the terms that keep coming up: trust, experience, technology, credibility, really making sure your stakeholders come into that conversation. Rishi, you brought up a great kind of example of we need to get our stakeholders, even non-technical stakeholders and business professionals, into the system to make sure that everything is working as well as it can. So Emily, we have a question for you. According to Seed Scientists, by 2030, the number of quantum computers worldwide could be between 2,000 and 5,000. How do you think that this will change the deep tech ecosystem?
I think it really depends, first of all, how big the quantum computers are. Second of all, how they're accessible. And third of all, where they are located, if the access is not just via the cloud or something like that. So the size of the computer matters a lot, because in my lightning talk, I was saying basically what we're able to do with the quantum computers really depends on how big they are and if the size of that computer maps to correct problems. And for now, we're quite a way away before we have some of these big applications that are being promised. So I can definitely see a few years ahead that there would be hundreds or small thousands of quantum computers, but they will be very small systems. And the applications of these might be more in educational services, also just to have people become familiar with them, right? It's a whole other type of programming and software development that needs to be done. And I think that brings it back kind of to the accessibility. So if they're accessible via the cloud, then it doesn't really matter where they are. But if you're talking about people having access to specific hardware, I think then you need to think about where it is distributed globally. And again, then I think, you know, living in Europe, we have problems that are going to come to mind to us directly from our day-to-day life. But these problems are not going to be the same for someone living in Africa or in South America or in Asia. And that kind of emphasizes, I think, the importance of, first of all, ecosystem building around these quantum computers and accessibility to them. Beyond that, I think the applications will be, you know, huge, but the number of computers doesn't mean too much to me on its own. It's really the accessibility, the familiarity with the technology, and kind of democratizing access to education around it.
Yeah, it's that democratizing that really is, or it seems like it's the future of deep tech. Daniel, who led the first lightning talk, said something very similar, democratizing technology so that communities getting involved, similar to your point, so it can be accessible and it can be inclusive. We've had a question come through for Lubna and for Davina. Suraj Tamraka says, what are some of the skeptical views expressed by researchers following traditional softwares to model molecules? Now, I'm hoping you know what that means, and that you can answer that question. So Lubna, I'm going to hand it over to you first.
Can you please repeat it again?
Absolutely, right? I feel like that was a mouthful. Suraj asks, what are some of the skeptical views expressed by researchers following traditional softwares to model molecules?
Oh, okay, so I will answer the part how traditional software with AI, not part the molecule part, because I'm working more on the after the molecule is designed, so how we can bring it. So I mean, for me as a probabilistic guru, I classify people in two: the rule-based and the probabilistic. So it's really people that like rules, traditional IT. Or the kind of, although AI has its roots in symbolic logic at the beginning, it developed to probabilistic logic. And if you are a person that believes you should set the rules for your team, right, so top-down planning, that you will have the most difficulty to adapt to adaptive learning of AI systems, and we see that. So it takes time. It can happen that change kind of change process, but I think that is number one resistance that is happening, and to be able to move those people to the new systems. What we do at Okra is really providing all the evidence underpinned with reasons, explainable AI, providing all the reasons behind the AI system algorithm. And as I mentioned in my talk, it's never going to be causal events. It's not like because this happened, that's why you should do this. It's all because data is not ready yet to capture all the causality. It provides correlation measures. And I think that is one of the things, or the shifts that needs to happen in our decision making, is to embrace correlation more and more, and accept or embrace the explainability of machines, which not always the same as explainability for for our between us human beings. And I think that is the number one. And in healthcare as an evidence-based industry, where to the previous question, what is the big transformation that needs to happen? I think at the moment we're using AI and technology to solve the big problems, which is the bureaucracy that's taken years before we get drugs that are developed in labs 20 years ago. So that is what at Okra we're solving, that how can we bring this molecule faster to the patients? Once we've solved that, I think for me as a citizen, and what I see the future for my kids, is that they live in a society where the healthcare system doesn't wait for them to get sick in the first place, that they intervene. And I think using all the AI and this technology to build preventive healthcare models. At the moment, all the business models in the healthcare, hospitals, all the stakeholders, they are waiting, they make money when people get sick. So how can we change that model and make money to avoid people getting sick in the first place? And I think that is, for me, the dream. But before we get there, we have to solve the big elephant in the room, the bureaucracy and the long waiting lists and the long regulatory process and so on. Thank you.
Such an interesting take, thinking about citizenship versus C-suite, thinking about commercial elements versus what is best for the community. Davina, do you have anything to add on the back of that?
Not much, actually, because that was a brilliant answer, Lubna. I would just say, I guess it depends where that skepticism comes from. Now, if it's skepticism towards the technology, then definitely what everybody has spoken about previously, trust becomes really vital. I think if it's skepticism about the end point, it probably goes back to a bit about what I said and what Lubna mentioned in terms of, you know, how do we future-proof where people end up through the adoption of AI and quantum and other deep tech.
Thank you. And remember that you can ask us questions at Pirate Summit, #Pirate Live, #Deep Tech. Ask your questions, get involved. We've got some great questions coming through, and this is a question for everyone who is investing. So the question that's come through, and this is anonymous, but we've had a number of these come through, so people must be interested in investment, is as investors in deep tech, what is it that you look for from businesses and technologies in the future when you are investing? So Davina, if I may ask you first, and Emily and Ruchi, and we'll go round, and then Lubna, if you'd like to join in at the end, please do.
So I can give you my take, which is we're obviously early stage investors. So the position we come in, you know, with a company, especially with a deep tech company, they will probably be either build and test. They probably won't have much revenue going through. So what are we investing in? We're investing in the technology. So, you know, that means that the technology DD becomes really, really important. The other thing we'll be looking for is a really credible founding team. So, you know, it would be really important to us if it was a deep tech business that they have a brilliant technologist as one of the founding team. You know, yes, I think you can outsource your dev. I think that's pretty standard, but you do need a technical expert as part of your founding team.
Thank you for that. Such a concise answer. What about yourself, Emily?
Yeah, it's quite a broad question. I mean, I think I can agree with what Davina said. Really, in deep tech, everything is technology driven. So something that's really revolutionizing or innovating a certain part of the field is at the core and the heart of the company. But beyond that, there's a transition that's happening, right, as this technology is coming out of where it was created. And that means that while you need a very strong technical team, there needs to be people also in the team that are able to help that technology make that transition and make it out to the commercial and business world. And I understand that it's not necessarily easy to be a professor in a university and also like have 2 startups and have heaps of commercial experience. But I think a mindset and just like an open-mindedness can do a lot, because some academic environments are not necessarily used to it, right? So just to be aware and be thinking about it, and a lot of passion and motivation can go a long way. In terms of more like the product development, I guess, like Davina said, a lot of the time you're investing in maybe an idea, like a very early stage product. So really keeping in mind the fact that it is a product and not just something that's been invented, and that it has a use and that it's solving a pain point is really crucial. And I think that can keep things kind of on track quite easily to make sure that you're actually doing something that is helping people and that needs to have a solution.
So far, we've got great product team. We've got making sure you are solving a problem that actually exists and is covering the pain point. We've got good technical knowledge. Yes, you can outsource your dev, but we need someone who has the technical knowledge on the team. And this constant theme that keeps coming back up, it's not just technology that's focused, it's the commercial, it's the community, it's the people around it. It's not just you are technical, it's who is leading the business case studies, who is sharing the leadership skills, who is communicating correctly, and making sure we have empathy at the core of everything. Dr. Ruchi, would you like to add anything at the end of that?
Sure. I think especially in deep tech, what happens, since these are like mostly pre-revenue companies, you cannot actually see any traction. And oftentimes these companies also struggle a lot with product market fit, even though they have like some core technologies that are really game changing, but still like having a product market fit is really important. So just the ability to see like which are the particular applications of this particular technology, and like would they be able to address like a huge market. I think that's something that I would like to add, apart from technology and definitely the founding team strength.
Well, thank you for all of those suggestions. Now, I can't help but bring up this topic. This year, I was announced LinkedIn Changemaker for 2021 in the UK and Europe for gender diversity and diversity in tech and business especially. So I have to bring it into the mix. And we've got some great questions coming in, as well as answers. So the question is deep tech the future of technology? And the answers that are flooding through are women in STEM are, right? Women in STEM are the future of technology because it's representative. But the question really coming through is, why is there such a stigma? Why are the numbers not changing? How do we get more women into tech? For the last few years, they've very much been stagnant between 13 to 20%. We haven't really seen that drive. There are companies who are apparently pledging their D&I efforts. There are companies who are saying we are investing into women in tech, and yet the numbers aren't really shifting. And here we are, 5 women, or those who identify as, talking about the purity and talking about the process being technical, and just being in the commercial team when it comes to technology. Dr. Rishi, I can see you're shaking your head, and I can feel that you want to get involved. So how do we encourage more women in technology? What do you think we can do through actionable steps, right? Because the media is telling us there's not enough, and actually the marketing and the news forums are telling us we're all imposters to start with. What do you think we can be doing?
Sure, that's a question that's very close to my heart. So I really encourage having more women on STEM. One of the ways that we can encourage that is like have more investments go into women founders, especially for tech investments. And I think like there are some communities that have come up these days for investing into women founders. I think that's a very good way, because as you see more and more role models who have done things on their own, who have done like successful exits, raised a good amount of funding, it gives the confidence for the next generation as well, because everybody is looking for role models. And like if we are able to get some good role models, especially in deep tech, women in deep tech, I think that would be a game changer in terms.
Gives me hopes, it gives me a reassurance. I am launching a new SaaS software business, being your end-to-end D&I partner, called Launch EDI. And to everyone's point, SaaS software, it seems like that's the future. AI automating that mundane tasks, taking it forward. And I have to admit, it's taken me about 5 years to even feel like I can be that woman in tech to move forward, right? Davina, you play a big part in my own journey. So tell us, what do you think we can do, echoing what Dr. Richie's already explained and already mentioned, outside of role models, to really encourage those women into technology, and not just women, but diversity of every kind?
So I think there's a lot around, that adage, you can only be what you see, right? So when I was at university, I was thinking about this the other day. So I think there was 50 of us on my physics course, and I think there were 8 females on there, so that's less than 20%. And I looked at the stats actually at the moment, and this is obviously UK I was looking at, I think that figure is still only, I think 21% of physics students are women. So that was a bit like, oh, it's not really changed much from when I was at university. Then when I went to take a step back a bit and look at school leavers who are going into university, actually that figure is a lot more encouraging, because it's more a 50-50 split of young girls taking STEM, and that's really encouraging. So, and I think what's happened there is there has been a real public push in the UK to encourage young schoolgirls to go into STEM. So we can see that encouragement does work. So we just need to get the message out there. We need to make sure that all of that 50% converts into university STEM degrees. And we also need to just remind girls, young women, that actually technology is for them. It's about them. Technology isn't just, I think there's a very kind of poor stereotype of, it's a young guy in his 20s with his Oculus on with pizza boxes around him, but it's not. Technology proliferates all our lives and we need it to be inclusive. So we need women to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, we all have seen the stats, right? Representative companies, representative groups, they increase profits, they increase productivity, they increase profits. They increase the processes. Through the Like-Minded Females Network, we found that 50% of women feel like they need a mentor to enter tech and to progress in tech versus 5% of men. And personally, through a lot of the academic research that I've been doing, or at least I've been reading up on, South Asian women and Black women are the most likely to leave when it comes to senior positions because they are either not a culture fit, or they get penalized for their mistakes, or they do not feel that professional band when it comes to technology. And Davina Ritchie, to your point, really echoing, what is a role model? What does it mean to be in technology? What kind of tasks are you going to be taking? And what kind of skills do you need to even enter that space? Lubna, what about yourself? What do you think we can do to encourage more women, not only into STEM, but in C-suite positions and CEO positions like yourself?
Yeah, I think a lot has been said, but I think on the micro level per organization, what we can do is to the best ways of increasing diversity is to have a diverse leadership team, and this is the central team to lead by example, and also include this as the KPIs for the managers in their hiring process to have a diverse teams, and I think and also, as been said, showing that it works much better because it's not we do it because we have to, but we do it because it is better. And it is, and which brings me to a point that one of the measures for investing in startups and in companies, it shouldn't only be about profit and about the number of users and about the product market fit, but also the impact. So if you're in a climate tech, it's about how much CO2 emission you're reducing. If it's health tech, how many patients you're helping. So, and I think women have this kind of advantage. You don't lose a full picture. So we are not in a tunnel vision. We can have that. And I think having a diverse team will allow us to step outside of our comfort zone and see the full picture better. And that's on the micro, on the organization side. But I think to really solve the problem, we need to solve it from the roots. The way we educate from primary school and going on, we need to make it more attractive for girls. STEM studies, we need to give examples, colors, and attract. It's not just for boys. And also, if you look, the pandemic showed us everything that's dysfunctional about our society. So what happened is that the childcare we have to, next to our jobs, to look after our children, to homeschool them, it came mostly on the women's side of the job. So we could see that the childcare system or what is available comes mostly and affects the career of women. And I think we can balance that by giving men more rights to spend time with their children, more paternity leave, and create a society where actually equality, not only for the side for women, but also for men, because I think young dads want to spend more time with their children. We need to create a society where equality is from the roots and not only a shiny word we use and then it reflects in phenomena like this that not many women can achieve the top because they have so many things to do on the side.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the questions are just rolling in, so I feel like we probably should have a little bit more time for this. And you've answered the questions. The questions from those who are sending through anonymously says, where would we like to start? Where do we need to start? As Lubna mentioned, start in the school, start in the education system. It's not pink is for girls and blue is for boys. It's not dinosaurs and rockets are for boys and princesses are for girls. It's make sure everyone is collaborative. Think about the skills. How can we best encourage girls and women? Talk about the roles. enter the careers, focus on skill set, make sure there are role models, encourage mentoring programs, invest in your people. And to Lubna's point, think within your own business, think on a micro and a macro level. How are you tracking your EDI data? Are you tracking your EDI data? That's definitely something that we are building as two women, a Black founder and a brown founder in tech, with the new tool that we are launching. But it really is about bringing that power back into the company and keeping them accountable. Emily, I'm going to flip the question just a little bit, so you can definitely answer that. But there's so many questions coming through. I want to make sure we cover all of them. So the question that's come through is, and there's two, do you think that class plays an important role for encouraging women into tech? And this is the question for everyone that we just want to think about, but I'd love to get your thoughts on, is who is your female role model? Like, why are you even in this space, and how did you get there? So Emily, I know that's kind of loaded. But I'm gonna let you take that first, and then we're gonna bring it back to the rest of the panelists.
Yeah, of course. Well, the first question, do I think class comes into play? Absolutely. I mean, there are social barriers that exist in the world that can't really be denied, and it's part of a larger systematic issue that we've all been talking about. And yeah, maybe to bring it back on the points before, kind of summarize, I think a holistic view starting at the roots is really important, and making sure that there's support, on all the steps of the journey. Just because you've made it in tech and now you have a startup doesn't mean that there's no more, barriers for you ahead. And, encouraging things like mentorship and community building, again, can be really crucial. In terms of female role models, I have many, but mine are actually not in tech. They're in a sport that I do that's called capoeira. It's a bit off topic, but there are a lot of powerful women that really embrace their femininity and their strength in a way that can really be leveraged to play like the sport also against men. So kind of the double-sided coin, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, even women in sports, right? That is an industry that we're trying to get equal pay, equal rights, equitable pay, equitable rights, and saying, you know what, sports isn't just for boys, it's for everyone. It just like tech, and it's one of those industries where technology, I kind of say, is the new finance, right? It's like the hot industry everybody wants to be in, but we don't really know what our routes to access is. And construction, sports, well, they're coming after. So we really need to pave that change and make a difference. Davina, what about yourself? Dr. Ruchi, what about yourself? Do you think class plays an issue when it comes to social mobility and encouraging women into tech? And what can we do today to really to overcome these barriers?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, if you kind of kick it off, sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I guess in terms of class, I think absolutely, class does have a part to play. The opportunities you are that are available to you based on your social class can seriously impact. And we've had a couple of chaps go into space recently, and I think they've come from kind of quite privileged backgrounds, some of them. So I think that in itself is an indication of how much class plays in access to STEM, etc. I think in terms of my science role model, it's probably a bit cliched, but growing up, I think when I was 10 years old, I did a project on Marie Curie, and it blew my mind because even at that young age, I hadn't ever been exposed to a female scientist, and so it was amazing learning about her, and I think seeing a woman up there doing it as well, it kind of drove me to say, yeah, it's possible for me to be in science.
Thank you. So, Dr. Ruchi, if you'd like to add, please get involved.
Sure. I think the point about class was correct by Davina. I'll just share a role model that I have in mind, and I've admired her for a long period of time. So she's not really into tech, but she was called the Iron Lady, and her name is Cecilia Danelli. So she was one of the founders of Danelli steel mills. So what they did differently was, instead of using the traditional furnaces, they used electric arc furnaces, and that changed the entire steel industry. So I would say that Cecilia Danelli is still like my role model, even though she's not there, but like she was very early in her in terms of like getting used to new technologies, adopting new technologies, especially in an industry like steel, which is morely filled with men. There are very, very few women in that. So I think like I've looked up to her for a long period of time.
Thank you so much. So as we start to wrap up, just a couple of themes that are coming through before we ask our panelists the final question. A couple of notes that I've taken, right? Is deep tech the future of technology? Well, actually, deep tech is going to help us to move away from the mundane, provide higher value to the tasks that we want to do, and really support people in their evolution. Lubna made a great point in her lightning talk. She said something along the lines of, we either get with it, we either flow with it, or it's going to leave us behind. Change and speed of tech, it is fast, it is flowing. We can run after it, or we can embrace the change and let it flow and then figure out the regulations after, but it really is helping us evolve better as a society. We've spoken about democratizing tech. Daniel shared that in his lightning speech, as did Emily, as did Lubna, and we've spoken about this right now. And when it comes to the future of technology, especially for women, it is about really bringing those EDI data points back into your business. As if you have performance goals, and the same way that you have to do security training every year, think about your diversity training. Focusing on the difference between citizenship and C-suite. Yes, focusing on the commercial, but also bringing it back into community. Thinking about mentoring. According to Like-Minded Females, the LMF network, 50% of women feel like they need a mentor versus 5% of men. How do we overcome the barriers? But how do we start that conversation from the educational institutes, right? Going into schools, going into universities, talking about STEM, and most importantly, having the role models to get there. So I'd love our panelists to answer one final question, and that is deep tech the future of technology? And whilst you do, please start with, how can people connect with you? Where can they find you? Remind us of the companies that you are here representing. Maybe spell them out for us if they might be a little bit difficult, so that they can make sure that they are reaching out to you. And for those who are joining us, remember to take pictures, to tag us at Pirate Summit, #Pirate Live, #Deep Tech. My name is Sonia Barlow. I am an award-winning entrepreneur. I am a woman in tech, but most importantly, I'm your host for today. I'm so delighted that I've been able to host this panel with incredible women. So we're going to start off with you, Emily, if that's okay. How can people find you? Where can they connect? Remind us the company that you are representing. And most importantly, is deep tech the future of technology?
I'll start with, I think deep tech is the future of technology, yes. I won't go into too much detail, but anyone who wants to have a chat with me can reach me on LinkedIn or by email at emily.meads@speedinvest.com, which is where I work. Look forward to meeting you all, and thanks so much, Sonia, for today.
Thank you so much. Lubna, what about yourself?
I believe deep tech is not the future of technology, but deep tech is now, is the present. And what we're going to see in the future is we will witness the rapid increase and the scale of things that can be changed with deep tech from all in all industries and addressing all the sustainable goals we have. And you can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Happy to connect.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ruchi?
Yeah, deep tech is definitely the future of technology. And you can find me on LinkedIn as Ruchi Dana. You can also email me at rdana@mfepartners.com. So I'm representing MFE Partners, which is a deep tech fund based in the Valley. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Davina.
So I agree with Lubna. Deep tech is here. And I think what we need to think about is how we future-proof ourselves and future generations for work for the future and jobs for the future. And if people want to get in touch with me, they can find me on LinkedIn, Davina Paul, or on Twitter, which is, I think, at dgalvanize.
Thank you. So we've got 2 yeses. Deep tech is the future of technology. 2, deep tech is right now in the present. It's how we future-proof it. We want to hear from you. Remember to tweet us, remember to tag us, remember to take pictures, tag us on LinkedIn, get involved with the conversation. And I just want to say a final big thank you to all of our panelists and for everyone who's contributing to the questions, listening, and to Pirate Summit, Pirate Life for inviting us on and making sure that we have a very, very healthy and interactive conversation, answering the big questions and making sure that we are the future role models for those women that want to enter STEM and tech. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia, and also from my side, a big thanks to all of the panelists for this powerful talk at the end of our day. So many encouraging messages that hopefully let so many more people, so many more women raise their sails in deep tech. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm just taking pictures.